This video is brought to you by Against the Flow of Mississippi. Against the Flow of Mississippi is a book about Jake Fayard, a Marine veteran who is unhappy with the political machine running the state of Mississippi. He decides to fight the corruption from the inside. Jake will face more challenges than he ever has and will stand up for what he thinks is right. His notoriously hot temper will push him to the edge of murder, along with his friend and brother Kobe Barhanovich. Together, they will fight the system and give the power back to the citizens of Mississippi. Against the Flow of Mississippi is now available on Amazon. A link to the book will be placed in the description below.
Count time on the compound. All inmates return to bunks. Beyond the Count, Life on the Compound. Brought to you by former Sergeant Allen of the Florida Department of Corrections. On this YouTube channel, I will explain to you the ins and outs and the do's and don'ts of a prison. Hope y'all enjoy. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And if you are a brother or sister correctional officer, y'all remember, be safe and we never walk alone.
All right, y'all. Beyond the Count, Life on the Compound. Your host, former Sergeant Allen. I want to do a video on a fairly controversial subject here. This has been controversial going back to the founding of this country. It's the death penalty. Now, I started my career in Rayford, Florida. When I started in Rayford, I was at New River Correctional Institution, which is right across the street from FSP. FSP, Florida State Prison, is where the execution chamber is. Now, I am actually watching a documentary. It's filmed by a British journalist in 1987. It's called 14 Days in May. It takes place up at Parchman Prison. A guy by the name of Edward Earl Johnson was convicted and later found to be innocent. He was convicted of killing a police officer. Now, I was put this documentary on to show a friend of mine. I kind of wanted his thoughts on it. I've seen it before. He hasn't. Good documentary. It's a little long. It's a couple hours long. But it demonstrates all the preparations that they do. Gets the mindset. They have full access to the prison, full access to the inmate, full access to the staff, the officers on duty. They show how they, at the time, Mississippi's preferred method for executions was the gas chamber. Well, this documentary actually shows them killing a rabbit. They took a bunny rabbit, put it in a cage, put the cage in the gas chamber, pulled the lever after they closed the door, sealed it off, pulled the lever, And that's how they tested the gas chamber. Now, watching that rabbit die, the rabbit jumped, bounced his head up around inside the cage, and then ultimately the rabbit died. I've seen that. I've seen tapes on lethal injection. I'm sure everybody's seen the Green Mile, what happens with the electric chair. We all know about hangings. We all know about the firing squads. These are various methods of execution that we have used in this country. Some states don't even have the death penalty anymore. I think California is one of them. I'm not sure about New York. Mississippi, we haven't executed anybody. We haven't executed anybody in Mississippi since 2012. Where I work at in Florida, they haven't executed anybody since 2019. So, but they executed several. They executed, I want to say, 2 or 3 people while I was working at Rayford. In fact, I'm actually going to look that up right now. Let's see. Oh, more than I thought. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people were executed while I was working at Rayford, Florida. Keep in mind, I worked at New River, which is right across the street. Now, we went on lockdown too. We had protesters that actually come onto uh, our prison where I was at New River, and stayed across the street from FSP. We had Florida Highway Patrol there, Bradford County Sheriff's Office, IG's office, people from Central Office, the entire alphabet soup to make sure that order was kept, and people didn't get out of line. Now, I want to delve into your responsibilities as a correctional officer. First and foremost, it doesn't matter what their sentence is. I don't care if they get a year and a day for credit card fraud, driving under suspended license for the third offense, which is a felony in the state of Florida. It's not Mississippi. Or if they are Ted Bundy and they are sentenced to death by lethal injection. By the way, fun fact, Florida also has the electric chair, and they do test it every 6 months. That is required in policy. Um, they actually have to test it. They actually have to make sure that it is still in working order, because they still have it as an option for the inmate to die by electrocution. It doesn't matter. As far as you being a correctional officer, it could matter. It couldn't matter less. It is none of your business what somebody is in prison for. It is none of your business what they did. It is none of your business. You are not there to punish them for crimes they committed on the street. That is not your job. I want to say that right out front. That is not your job. If you go in there with the attitude of, I'm going to slap the first sex offender I see. You don't need to be there. Period. I don't care. I don't care that your mother may have been sexually assaulted, your girlfriend may have been sexually assaulted, you may have been sexually assaulted. You have no business punishing an inmate for what they are in prison for. That is not your job description. Your job description is care, custody, and control of the inmates under your charge. And that's it. If you have personal knowledge of an inmate's crime, mind your business, shut up, and keep it to yourself. You're going to find inmates that are going to tell you what they've done. Some of them are even proud of it. True story. Usually, those are the ones that got less than 5 years. They're trying to make a name for themselves in prison. They want to come out with the rep. Oh, I've been in prison. I'm a hard ass. No, you're not. No, you're not. You just got caught doing something stupid. You went to prison for a couple of years. There's times I myself could have wound up in prison. I was a breath away from prison in my life. At several times in my life. Because, hey, guess what? I'm human. I screw up too. I would venture to guess that unless you're an altar boy, you know what? Venture to guess, even so, you've probably been a breath away from getting charged with a felony yourself. So it is not your job as a correctional officer to punish somebody for what they did on the street. Your job is to maintain order and control of the institution. Let's get that right out of the way. Second, Don Cabana, who at the time was the warden of Mississippi State Penitentiary at Parchman, who became an avid, outspoken critic of the death penalty before he died in 2014. Man, I respect wholeheartedly. Don Cabana was a good man. He was a Vietnam veteran. He did 40 years in corrections in several different states. He said it best. I worry about somebody who's eager to methodically strap somebody down and kill them. I agree with that. I do too. Now, that's not to say that I wasn't mentally prepared to kill somebody every time I went to work. Because I was. It was my job. If I'm on perimeter and an inmate goes over that second fence and I happen to see it, you don't think I'd have took that 12 gauge and dropped him? You better believe I would. That's my job. I'm going to do it. If not, I'm derelict in my duties. Did I mentally prepare myself for it? Yes. Up here, I'm always playing what if situations. What if an inmate sneaks out and goes over that second fence and I see it? Am I prepared to reach down, grab the 12 gauge, chamber around, and discharge? Yes, I absolutely am. Did I drive around with one in the chamber? No. Number one, it's against policy in the state of Florida. Now, when I went to outside hospital, the 9mm on my hip, absolutely had one chamber. Absolutely, I had one chamber. And I prepared. What if this inmate tries to do something? What if? What if? Always in my mind. How am I going to do this? How am I going to react? What am I going to do? I always play scenarios in my head. Always. And I do this so that I can make sure that I'm prepared to do my job. But I would have never volunteered for a death squad because my opinion is number one, the inmate's no longer a threat. He's been in prison for 5, 10, 15, maybe longer years. It's not a threat anymore. If I'm going to take somebody's life, if I'm going to end a man's life, send him to meet Jesus. I'm not a very religious man. I believe in Jesus. I believe in God. But I'm not a church going guy. And I'm not going to get into the whole religious part of it because I don't really see the need. But if I'm going to send somebody out of this world into the sweet by and by, he's going to be a direct threat to me. Or I'm not going to feel right about it. There's many times doing another job that I had, which was a bail bondsman, that I had my weapon out. Walked around with a 45 on my hip. I had that weapon out. I've had it trained on somebody. And their next action dictated mine. Thank God I never had to pull that trigger. But if I did, I would have known 100% that I was in the right. And it was because I was under a direct threat. You're threatening me. So I'm responding with a show of force. But as far as to actually strap somebody down, stick a needle in them, or walk them into the gas chamber, or sit them down in the electric chair, I'm not sure I could do that. I'm not sure that I could fulfill my task and do that. I'm going to quote something else. All right. We have a constitution in this country. We have a Bill of Rights in this country. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They were ratified in 1791. The Eighth Amendment is the right against cruel and unusual punishment. I wonder something. I really wonder if killing somebody who is no longer a threat violates the Eighth Amendment. And I struggled with this. And in your career as a correctional officer, you may run across this. Some of y'all watch this. I've got no problem. I'll kill them right now. I'll kill them for you. Kill them all. Let God sort them out. And if that's how you feel, that's your right. Not saying you're right. Personally, I think you're wrong. But if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. You're entitled to feel how you feel. You're entitled to have the feeling of whatever. Again, I think you're wrong. I personally think that you need to sit down and do some serious soul searching, call a therapist. If you currently work for a Department of Corrections, if they offer EAP, probably wouldn't be a bad idea for you to talk to them because you're probably in the wrong line of work. Just being honest with you. Your job is not to punish anybody. Your job is to let the justice system work. But if you do find yourself on a death squad, be professional. By the way, Edward Earl Johnson was an innocent man. He was set up and had a confession forced out of him by overzealous white police officers in Mississippi in the late 70s, and he was a young 18-year-old black man. I'm not trying to play the race card, but I'm saying in Mississippi in the late 70s, I'm pretty sure that played a big part in it. You cannot take lethal injection out of somebody's blood once you put it in there. When you push the plunger of the needle, you can't take it back. If it's an electric chair, when you pull that lever, you can't take that back. There's no way you can take that back. You can't unflip that switch. You can't uninject that poison. And sometimes juries don't have all the facts. Again, these are my thoughts. I'm not representing any department when I say this. I'm not representing anybody else who may or may not work in corrections. I may get a lot of hate mail for this saying, you're wrong. You're wrong. You don't know. You're wrong. And you know what? If that's how you feel, you have the right to feel that way. Now, has things gotten a lot better over the last few years? Yes, we have DNA evidence. We have more eyes on the investigators, more eyes on the police, reality TV, the first 48. Um, Bert, help me out. What are some other shows? What is more investigative shows like the first 48 where they follow cops around? What? Give me some other ones. You watch more TV than I do. Um, Either way, there's enough eyes on the police and exculpatory evidence is less withheld now than it was 30 years ago. So yes, things have improved. I will give you that all day long. But when you kill somebody, you can't unkill them. You can't. It's impossible. When you end a man's life, you can't say, "Hey, I made a mistake," and give it back to him. You can't. There's no possible way you can make that happen. Something to think about, something to reflect on. Are there people in prison that I think just need to be killed legally, not just going in there and massacring somebody? Because that's not what we do. But are there people in prison that I think probably could benefit society if they no longer existed? Yeah, there are. Is it my job to do it? Nope. Is it your job? Nope. Are you a juror? No, you're not. You're not a juror. You're not a prosecutor. You're not a judge. You are a correctional officer, and you better be professional about it. For those of y'all who may find yourself working death row and have never dealt with it, I'm going to tell you right now, most of them are very respectful. They're quiet. They're not going to give you any problems. Really, most of your death row inmates or your lifers are not going to give you very many problems at all. They've accepted it. I'm never getting out of here, or I'm never getting out of here alive. So they've just accepted fate. They grin it and bear it, and they try to make the best of it as they can. Just something to reflect on, y'all. Y'all be safe.